everyone. We thank you so much for watching tonight. I'm John Evans.
I'm Frances Weller. Continuing our coverage tonight about concerns inside the Wilmington Police Department. 93%
of officers that responded to a recent survey said they would not recommend working at that agency. WECT's Connor Smith has reported on issues with the WPD for months now. Now, Connor, you talk with a member of City Council tonight who calls this survey and the results deeply concerning.
That's right, John. Luke Waddell believes low morale within the police department has a direct impact on your safety, and he believes the results of this survey could also impact the future of WPD. Wilmington police officers making their voices heard in a new survey. The North Carolina Police Benevolent Association sharing feedback on the state of the Wilmington Police Department from over 100 officers. Over 90% not recommending WPD as a place to work.
I think that in itself speaks leaps and bounds.
NCPBA Chapter President Brandon Gray says they've been hearing concerns from within the department for months. That dates back to the conclusion of a third-party investigation into WPD. That report substantiated complaints of a hostile work environment against police leadership. Chief Donnie Williams later called those complaints racially motivated. The survey results highlighting pay, benefits, and staffing shortages as key issues. And a majority of surveyed officers say city leaders aren't doing enough to help them.
This is not one problem. When and if it ever gets completely discovered, there are a multitude of issues here.
Gray and the NCPBA are now pushing for council members and you to be able to see that third-party report. So is council member Luke Waddell.
Without a doubt, they're owed at least a summary, and the people that represent them, that they elected to represent them, certainly are owed a summary of it at a minimum.
Waddell says the survey caught his attention and he expects it to be discussed at future council meetings.
Morale has a direct impact on the operational readiness of the police department. And that directly affects the safety of the city of Wilmington and the people here.
With Chief Williams retiring within the next 2 months, the city is now looking for its next police chief. The NCPBA is asking council for a say in that decision.
The #1 priority over any agency whatsoever should always be its people.
Both Gray and Waddell agree WPD needs a leader that can bring this department together. Now, we tried to do an interview with Chief Williams, but he declined to comment on the survey. We also reached out to every other member of City Council. We only heard back from David Joyner, who said he couldn't comment. John?
All right, Connor, what do we know tonight about the city's response to some of the complaints and to the survey?
Well, council is working on next year's budget at the moment, and Waddell says pay increases to officers are on the table, and he expects those to arrive. He says they're still working on finding their next police chief, someone he hopes is a strong, transparent, and cohesive leader.
We'll have to see how everything unfolds. Connor, appreciate it. Thanks.